yourself.
I am Brandon Daruna.
Brandon.
Hi, Tim. I'm the CEO of Eagle County Health Services District. Hey, right? We're just talking about Health Services District. Um, and I have to first thank Kim for letting me deviate just slightly from the theme of the last 2 days. First, let me apologize for not being here yesterday. I had a board meeting, but I'm sort of becoming obsessed with this. I promise there's an association with financial stuff, right? So this is not just going to be like Brandon's, some insight into my belief that AI is the future. Although I'm going to plant a flag and say AI is the future. But we are going to talk about financial stuff, I promise. But we got to do some foundational work. I have to hopefully inculcate you with this idea that AI is something that we should all be using. And so let's start out with this. Who in the room has used AI before? Every hand should go up because you're using it every day. You're using it. It's already in all your devices. Who is a daily user of AI and or pays for AI? All right, good. This is gonna be like me preaching to the choir. I like that. Who thinks that this is a complete waste of their time? You can raise your hand. Great. No, really good. So the goal here is to spend some time. I'm going to give you a little insight into, well, first let me say this. This is a disclaimer that I should probably start with. This curriculum was built by AI. These slides were built by AI. Most of the imagery you see is going to be AI. And here in a second, I'm going to let AI talk to you because I think it's really important for us to sort of truly understand the scope of this. So as you see the imagery and we collaborated for a lot of this, but most of the images, the backdrops, all this sort of stuff. This, in fact, when I asked AI what an image would be that it would like to use to introduce itself to a class, this is what it created. So just to start thinking in a complete, what's that?
At least it's not art.
Yet.
Bill.
Yet. So the scope of this conversation is really like, how can we apply this amazing tool to the things we're doing every day? And I'm here doing this. This is something that I do every day. And I'm telling you right now that the time that it took me to put this lecture together was a tenth of what it typically because of it. Okay. I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. That's all it took for me to do this. This is all ChatGPT generated stuff. Is that weird? I'm sorry. So I want to go over the history, a little bit about how we got here, a little bit of a definition of different sorts of models. We're going to talk about some of the products that are out there, how this thing really works. So the best I can do, not being very smart. Hopefully you can help. He's got a demonstrated history of doing some IT and programming stuff, right? Is that fair? Okay, so he's going to help. And we're going to talk a little bit about how it works, try to give you a model in your brain so you can figure out how this stuff works. Talk about what it's done just in the last 18 months. So, we're 2 years really into AI. In its consumer form, it's been in the 10, but just kind of how it's changing our culture already. How we're going to use it at work, a little bit about pitfalls, risk, and ethics, which is probably something that we should all think about. But let's do this. Let's have AI. Oh, and if you don't believe in this stuff, I just want to show you this ad from this is 2000, right? Imagine. So if you're sitting in your chair and you're thinking to yourself, this is bullshit. This is going to be a passing fad. This is what was Daily Mail, Tuesday, December 5th, 2020, I'm sorry, 2000. And can you imagine thinking about the internet in this way today, right? So let's do this. This is a slide that AI also made. I want to just talk to AI for a sec. Let's just see if we can get this done. Hey, ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT.
Hey, Brandon, what's up?
You're super loud, dude.
Not much. Just here to chat with you.
Great. You didn't understand me. So I wonder I'm in a classroom with some EMS leaders, and we're talking about AI and how it can be useful at work. I wonder if you could take a couple minutes, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, introduce yourself, and just highlight some of the value you might provide to managers, clinical managers in the EMS field.
Absolutely, Brandon. I'd be happy to help. Hello, everyone. I'm ChatGPT, created by OpenAI. I'm designed to.
See, that's how it's going. You're breaking up, ChatGPT.
Sorry about that. Let me try again. Hello. I'm ChatGPT, created by OpenAI. Right? Including improving communication. My guidelines won't let me talk about that. Can I help you with something else?
Well, that didn't really work. Can you try that one more time?
Let's try one. Hello, everyone. I'm ChatGPT, an AI developed by OpenAI. I'm here to assist EMS leaders,
It's getting feedback.
managers by streamlining,
All right, forget that. Try it.
enhancing decision making, and
I think it is too. Let's try this.
sure, let's give it another shot. Hello, everyone. I'm ChatGPT, and AI guidelines won't let me talk about that. Can I help you with something else?
All right, you failed. God, I worked so well when I did it a couple days ago. So the point of that was to see how easy it is to sort of have conversation with GPT. But when we're looking at these different models, that model is GPT-4. That is the model that has recently sort of hit the market. It's $20 a month. And the things that are different about it, if you've used GPT-3 or GPT-2, is that it now understands voice intonation, emotion. It understands imagery, so you can upload images and it can interpret them. It can create images. It can do this whole myriad of things that we're going to talk about as we move forward. That was, I said when I started this, that was going to be a kitschy thing that I tried to do and it was going to probably fail. So it did. So it's failed. So we'll move forward. So I want to give a little bit of a history. Do you guys know about Alan Turing? Does anybody know about Turing? So Turing was the first person that sort of asked what question? Does anybody know? Oh, did anybody tell you that my lectures are always participatory? Sorry.
Isn't he the one that created Enigma? Or is that?
He
somebody
deciphered
else?
it.
He deciphered it.
Yeah.
But the famous question he asked in 1950 was, could machines actually think? Right. So could machines actually interact in a way that was similar to the way the human brain functions? And there's something called the Turing test, which is notable because these AIs in the last 2 years have finally passed the Turing test. Anybody heard of the Turing test? The Turing test is, can a human decipher that a machine is a machine? Right. So since 1950, everything that we've created that has been this sort of machine interface, any chatbot that you've used in the last 10 or 15 years, all that sort of stuff, you knew you were interacting with a machine. It was very clear to you, right? You immediately, when you're on the phone with some sort of, the airlines or something, and you're interacting, you immediately start pressing 0, because you're like, I don't want to talk to this machine anymore. In the last 18 months, ChatGPT-4, along with a few other AIs, has passed this test and passed this test with a pretty high success rate. So now humans cannot distinguish the difference between AI and another human in interactions. Why is that important to us? We probably are getting stupider. But in the context of what the whole presentation we just saw about data and about how important it is to track things and how important facts are, we are in a post-truth world. So we do not really have the ability as humans to understand whether we're interacting with AI or machines, other humans, and there's a huge implication for our understanding of fact, truth, reality, all those sorts of things. We're going to look at imagery, and what's common is, when you take these AI classes, is somebody says, make a video, and it makes a video, and it's, wow, I can't believe that that's a video. But think about this in the context of convincing us of things, right? There is now algorithmic AI that can change and constantly manipulate the information we're seeing to give us a different opinion. Right? All those things are very important in a post-truth world. And as we are emergency services folks, and we're thinking about, creating our organizations in a sustainable way, in a resilient way, we need to think about the fact that what we've always relied upon, the data that we've always used in this sort of data revolution, is now going to be manipulated by things that can think much faster than we can, and they're believable. Hopfield and Hinton they actually won the Nobel Prize this year for physics, which is interesting. Their physics calculations and relationships to AI speaks a lot to how this is something that is completely different from what we've seen historically, right? We're not talking about algorithmic sort of calculations, but we're talking about physical orientations or relationships, which seems insane, but it's true. They have basically created a way that the AI can associate language in a physical space through math, which is the next generation. Am I right so far? Yeah. Okay, great. See, he's underwriting everything I'm saying. So this is a leap forward in the way we think about how these sort of technologies work. Historically, we were looking at code. People were writing software. The software was then designed to mimic or interact with in a particular way. And now what we're seeing is software writing itself, right? And improving itself based on its experiences and its education. So from 1950 through today, we've seen a huge change, but the change that we've seen in the last 18 months is multiple times what we saw from 1950 to the last 18 months. We are seeing a pace of change that is really, really incredible. And you may have heard of ChatGPT, or you may have heard of Gemini, which is Google's, or you may have heard of Copilot, which is Microsoft's. But there are a ton. I mean, if you go Google it, there's hundreds of AI engines, and they're all sort of useful for specific things. So I use GPT all the time. It is a large language model, but our one is video generation. ChatPDF is PDF interpretation. So ChatPDF is amazing. I can throw a PDF on ChatPDF and I can ask it 20 questions about the PDF. Think about the implications for school, right? Remember Cliff, who remembers Cliff's Notes? Now you can create your own Cliff Note, right? So the test asks me 20 questions. I can put the PDF in this AI, and it will, with a high level of reliability, it will give me the information I need to pass the test. What are the implications for that for our educational systems? Amazon has something called SageMaker, which is really good in back-end analysis and doing and sort of for people that are selling things and people that are doing supply chain logistics. Intercom is a chatbot. So this is just a tiny sampling of the things that are out there. There are many, many, many types of AIs. And part of the important thing when we are thinking about how this stuff works is not just, am I going to use an AI, but which AI am I going to use? How am I going to apply that to the work that I want to accomplish? All right, so I'm going to try to do this. It's going to be a little hard, but this is the image that ChatGPT created when I asked it how it works. And what do you think this is? If you had to take a guess of what kind of system of sort of solution this might be, why is it built like this?
Information and informational.
Yeah,
They
Yep.
don't know how it's computing it.
we don't quite know how. We have some understandings, but we're not quite sure exactly how this stuff works, which seems insane, but it's true. You look like you have something that you want to say, comment. Go ahead.
Looks like a nerd. Yeah.
So this is a neural network, right? So this is the work that's been going on for multiple decades, right? Understanding how to model computing in a more human, a more biologic way. And that's what ChatGPT and other AIs do, right? So they compute things in a neural network, which means the best way that I can sort of associate this, there is something called next token prediction, which is how AI creates things. And the way that it does that is breaking down words into tokens and then assigning mathematical values. But the way that you can think about it is imagine a three-dimensional space with pieces of words in that space. The closer those pieces are together, the more likely they are to appear together. So you might have dog and bone close together in that network, right? And as the AI is interpreting the information that's coming in this input section, it is looking at the words and looking at their orientations and assigning mathematical values based on how close they are to other words. Everybody looks like that totally blank stare. I'm still working. So that's the input section of this, right? So there's about, in GPT, there's 96 layers of evaluation and output. And in each of those layers, there's millions of calculations that occur for each layer to be successful. And through that process, GPT is understanding the sentence that's being presented or the question that's being asked, and it's referencing its training. Has anybody heard that term, training? So these models are all trained on information, and part of a lot of the challenge that's occurring now is people recognizing that huge amounts of data have been absorbed by these models. But when you're asking ChatGPT a question, it's not looking at the internet, right? It can now in 4, but that's not the way it works. It's not Googling it and then interpreting information and then giving you something. It is referencing most of publications in human history up until about 2020. And through its reference of that understanding and its ability to compute at a really, really high rate, it is figuring out what is the most likely next word. And that's what this output is. So it's taking all of human publication, really a large portion of human publication, and it is interpreting the question that you've asked to understand how it, that particular question and then what you're asking, And then in its response, it's making calculations to predict what the next most likely word is. That's all it does. And that's everything it does. So it's incredibly simplistic and so complicated that nobody understands it all at the same time. Does that make sense? There are several different types of AI. So what we are traditionally accustomed to is this large language model AI. That's what ChatGPT is, and many of the others that I put up there, which they are sort of they're generative AI, right? So they're designed to take in information, questions, take in PowerPoint presentations, Excel documents, and then create some value for the user. So I might ask AI a question, and AI is going to answer the question. The answer is typically right, and it's very thoughtful. And if you would have been able to hear it, it has a level of emotion that is sort of shocking. There is also the ones that might be more interesting for us, the natural language processing models, which are what we're going to see in the industry first, and we're already seeing. So models that are inherent during your course of care that are absorbing all the information that's coming out as you're taking care of a patient and maybe writing your narrative or maybe providing some suggestions for treatment. There's a really interesting company right now that's in the flight space. It's a small device oriented in the back of the helicopter. It is hearing, it is seeing, it is taking in all the information from the monitoring devices, and it is making suggestions for treatment. And the evidence seems to show that it has a very high level of success and it senses trend much earlier than the human would. So it is not providing the care, but it is supplementing the human's ability to understand what's going on and providing care with a higher level of speed and accuracy, right? So imagine the day that you wear a microphone and a camera and you go on a call, and the AI is not only understanding everything that's going on, but it's also providing you the treatment suggestions and it's writing your report. And at the end of the call, you just get back in the ambulance and go back to your station and you're done. And by the way, during the course of your patient interaction, you had something in your ear the whole time that was saying, the map of the patient has changed. The progression looks like this trend. This trend is very similar to this other billion trends that I've seen that will typically end in this resolve. These are the treatment modalities you have available to you to try to stop that, right? And it's going to do it far earlier than you could understand it. Huge implications for healthcare, huge implications for the cost of healthcare. A very, very sort of incredible, we're on the precipice of something that's really going to change our industry in a very fundamental way. I don't think it's going to get rid of our jobs, but it's going to get rid of jobs, right? So how is this already impacting our culture is a really important question. And when I asked AI to represent its change in the culture in an image, this is what it created, which I think is fascinating. So there is almost nothing concrete here, right? And what's over here is all the sort of concrete, understandable mechanisms of our culture prior to its arrival. It's a little terrifying, but go ahead.
So Brandon, you said that this brought it up in 2020. Then I'm just, from your presentation, I'm just assuming it's taken it upon itself to learn the next.
No. So the training of most AIs that are around right now are through the early 2020s. What the leap that 4 took is they gave it access to the internet. Which, I mean, I hate talking about it like it's a person, but they gave it access. So you'll notice when you use 4 is if you ask it a question that could be answered based on the context of human history, it will just give you the answer. If you ask it a question that is specific to current events, it will look at the internet. And then it will use the information that it gets from the internet, process it through its normal pathways, and then give you an answer. Okay. So say, give me a short synopsis on Joan of Arc. It's going to go back into its understanding of human history and it's going to provide you a short synopsis. If you say, tell me about Helene and its impact on Florida, it's going to go to the internet, it's going to gather a bunch of information, and it's going to come back, process it, and give you information. Fair? So I don't really know whether there's a need to continue its training. I think there probably is. As culture changes and language changes, I'm sure they will have to. But today, what it's doing essentially is those two things in tandem. And the internet part of it takes longer. So if you ask it a question that's sort of relevant and present that it wouldn't have information about, it takes it a little longer to look at the internet, gather information, come back. But still, when I say longer, it's less than 10 seconds. to do most of the things it does.
So this is based on a written record of our culture.
It's most of, yeah. It's
So in an area where the written record is much less.
getting ahead of me, getting ahead. Yes, the answer is yes. So yes, it's reflecting us, right? And they've trained it on huge data sets. So they trained Library of Congress, they've trained it on, Google's full understanding, social media stuff, newspapers, archive stuff. So part of the criticism and part of the challenge that's occurring now is these organizations that created this stuff are saying, wait a second, you took all of our intellectual property and you fed it into the machine, and now you're gonna make money off of it. And that's not fair, right? There's no laws to regulate this. We're in a new world as far as, how this sort of stuff's gonna work. But what's really, really important to understand is, don't panic. This is just like every other huge technological innovation. This is the buggy whip of our generation. I mean, to some extent, this is Google being significantly increased in efficiency and capability. This is not a fundamentally new concept. This is a far more efficient way to gain information. So, in that late 90s, early 2000s, we became a culture with instantaneous access to most information. And that has changed just in efficiency more than anything else from the information access standpoint. What is new is now this device can create, or at least have the illusion of creating new information, or creative information that didn't exist before. And that's what we have to wrestle with now, is how do we include that new ability in our culture and the way we move forward. And it's a little dicey, right? So we've had a bunch of stuff that's happened just in the last 18 months. The most recent one is these parents that are suing their school because their kid, who was apparently going to be the president of the United States or something from their perspective, used AI to complete an assignment and failed, or got expelled or something. And of course, he was going to go to Harvard on a full scholarship and ruin his whole life. Well, his parents had sued him in federal court, saying that there was no actual policy against using AI, and what they've done to him is a huge travesty. And the reality is, I don't know how it's going to. It's interesting to see what the courts do. There's a bunch of copyright cases from creatives that are saying that it's not fair that their intellectual property was used to train AI, and that those lawsuits are ongoing, right? So there's a ton of challenge in just this, as this thing is becoming something that is part of our every day. There's a ton of challenge in regulating it and understanding how it impacts things and how it got to where it is. Is the information on the internet free? Is that information free if you're using it to benefit from it? Can you mine all of human history and put it in a box and charge people to use it? That's what's happening, right? And so we have a lot of questions to ask from a cultural standpoint, as to how we want this stuff to work. Not even the ethical considerations and the sort of potential challenges, but just like, is what we're doing right now okay? Are these companies doing these sorts of things okay? And how should it be regulated? And GPT is OpenAI is the company, and they're a nonprofit, and they built their company as a nonprofit, saying we're here to serve the world, right? It's the most altruistic thing in the entire world. What are they doing right now? You guys know what they're trying to do? Become publicly traded.
Yeah.
They want to be a B Corp. They want to become a publicly traded private company, and they want to sell shares. Why are they going to do that? They want to make money. Well, that's how they're going to do it. But why do they want?
Yeah, I told him to.
Baby, they want to make money. I mean, they want to make, so all this stuff. We're capitalist society. All this stuff is going to end up, in a capitalist structure. And man, is that okay?
Well, I don't trust it, because that's not a newspaper. That's a newspaper.
Right. There's a clearly AI generated image, right? This is an old one, but good catch. That's AI. Anytime AI will, it doesn't know that there's words there. It just knows that there is some semblance of things that look like those things. And so it makes images that look like words, but they are nonsensical words, right? You'll see more of that. It's great. But that's it. That's not, in 18 months, we've gone from not being able to do this to being able to do that. I'm not convinced that in the next year we won't have perfect words and perfect images. And I'll show you some images so you can judge for yourself. But kind of moral of the story here, and I think what's really important from a leadership and management standpoint is we are here. And what this is technology on the bottom line and human adaptability on the middle line there. When what this means is that technology is now advancing faster than our ability to understand it, right? Which is why we have computer scientists that are saying we've created this thing and we really don't know how it works. But it'll make a cool picture for your group chat. So isn't that good, right? And I don't know if the answer to that question is yes. But this is where we are, and it's really, really important for us to recognize this because, sir.
I agree, I agree with you, that what your thought is.
Yeah.
Thought on it.
Yeah.
If you went throughout history, you kind of hinted at this already, if you went throughout history, you would have seen the same curve throughout other innovations. But what's always happened is the humanity curve has always bent upwards in correlation with the technology. So why, and I hear it all the time, why do we assume that maybe it's just human nature and fear of the unknown? Why do we always assume that this time it's going to be different and that the humanity curve's not going to curve proportionately with the technology curve?
I would, go ahead. Yeah.
Possibly the introduction of singularity, where the AI becomes self-conscious and starts making decisions for itself and decides that we're no longer beneficial to it. You know, that's, a lot of modern philosophers are concerned about. And
I feel afraid now. This book is from Thomas Friedman. Thank you for being late. I think 2010. So I would suggest this doc is about 10 or 15 years ago, and we haven't. And the pace of technological change is rapidly increasing, like exponentially increasing. And I think that we don't have it. I mean, if you had given me an iPhone in 2010 and been like, this is going to be a real challenge for the 2016 presidential election, I would be like, that's hilarious. But we saw the manipulation of people and through social media. We saw all these things we'd never conceptualized, right? Within 3 or 4 years of the introduction of the device. And we're 2 years now from the introduction of this stuff. And I suggest right now it's playing a role in what we all believe, right? And we don't have an ability to understand it, which is scary and important. And I think, some of the things that culture has to reconcile. And there is no regulation at all. There's very few Colorado laws. There's very few federal laws. As people make money off this stuff, there's going to be a huge push to not have regulation that will impede its ability to be successful. And so, we all need to recognize we're living in a world with technology that we don't understand. And we have been for a while, but gosh, it's changed a lot. So yeah, make sure. This is the first time I've taught this too, so I'm just making sure. So the goal here is really an understanding of this stuff and creating agile organizations. And so if you ever the VUCA concept, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, the military has been using it for 20 or 30 years. We have to start thinking for our organizations in how do we build an organization that can deal with totally unpredictable situations? Because what we think is going to happen is probably not grounded in what will really happen as this stuff starts to influence our culture and societies and the way we make decisions. So okay, that's the end of the doom and gloom stuff. Now I'm going to just talk about how to use it. Is that cool? Any other questions about like history, its definitions, how it's going to destroy our societies, anything like that? Great. So, and online, I'm watching the chat too. Well, I'm not. I was watching. He's watching the chat. If you have questions, just either turn your microphone on and yell or type them out. Okay, so how do we use this thing? So, when Google came out, there was this big learning curve where people were trying to figure out how to get actionable information on Google. And, we had no idea how to do this. This is this sort of string search or, how do I put words in to get things that I really want? And we trained ourselves to do what? You remember Google searching from like the like late 2000s and early teens? Right, you know all about this. How do you search on Google if you want to find something that's actually meaningful? Keyword search, right? So you do these like, you do quoted keywords or whatever. I want to know about Disney in October, and you put these words in that you think the document that you want to see would be populated with, and then that's the document you get. What's happened to Google in the last 5 or 6 years? Have you guys noticed? Doesn't care about string search anymore. Doesn't care about keyword search. What are you looking for? When you're searching Google, what can you do now? Just ask it, right? Ask it in plain language. you know, I want to know how to plan a 3-year-old's birthday party. You can write that in there and Google will interpret that and give you some documents about planning a 3-year-old birthday party. So the same sort of structure applies for AIs and generative AIs, except for take it one step further, right? So now instead of saying like this, I'd like a lesson plan about multiplying multiple fractions for 5th graders. You can literally, you can like become unglued and talk to the AI as if it was a friend of yours and give it all the details that you would like and really dig deeply into what you want it to create for you. And that's more effective, right? So if you did that in Google, if you do that in Google now, Google has AI now. But if you did that in Google 2 years ago, you would just get it would give you an error message, you'd get a muckily muck of a bunch of stuff that wasn't going to be helpful for you. But today, the best bet for this sort of stuff in prompting is really asking a detailed question. The other thing that can be done in AI that Google doesn't do is iterative questioning. So you can't go to the search from Google and say again, okay, that I like that search, but do it this way next time. But in AI, you can't. So I can say, I can ask AI a question, it will present a result, and then I can say, I like that result, and I like these aspects of it, but I would like this to be developed in a different way. And it will create something new based on the understanding that it has from that previous interaction. Take this one step further. AI, when you notice, maybe the only thing that was beneficial about that, when I asked AI to talk to you guys, it knew who I was, right? Because my AI knows me. It knows that I'm a professional. It knows that I teach, and it references all the conversations you've ever had as it is interpreting my latest question. So if I,
The fun part of the iterative questioning is it'll tell you. Memory has been updated. Then you look behind you because you're kind of worried that it might be back there.
it is. It is back there, above you, below you, in front of you at all times. So it's learning from us, and in order to be a really good tool for you, you can help guide it in its understanding. So you really have to think about this thing as a weird squirrel in your office that talks, that knows most of human history, right? And that you can ask it questions in a way that you would talk to any other human, and you can have iterative conversations with it. This is mind blowing. But when you think about that in the context of how you can accomplish work, it really changes the whole game. I mean, it changes the whole game. So think about this when we start thinking about the things that we can do. So here's some, I'm going to give you like some sort of breakdowns. I was in an office yesterday with our PA, who's our clinical guru, and he wanted to know about AI because, you know, I'm now the AI dork in our office. And I said, just talk to it. And I threw my phone up and pressed, and he said something like, what is the preferred anticoagulant for, you know, this really long PA sort of style question. And it answered him as if he was talking to a colleague. And he was just like, oh no. And I said, yeah. And he specifically asked it a clinical question that had an ambiguous distinction where there isn't a lot of research. And the AI said, you know, recognize that these are the two options, but there's not a lot of research to why it's used, and you can use it. And he was just like, I can't believe this thing's doing this. It has passed all the medical board exams. It's passed the professional engineering exam. It's passed the bar exam. It knows how to do this stuff, and it passed the surgical board exam with 92%. Do you want to ask it a clinical question? You can ask it a clinical question. Asterisks. I would not rely on its answer 100%. I would not put medication into a patient based on its opinion. But if you want to learn about a clinical process that exists, you don't need to go and find a book anymore. You don't necessarily, although it would be a good idea, need to find studies. And you, especially in the early parts of your clinical education, or when you're confused about something, you can ask AI. Imagine a video AI that I can prompt to create a training scenario. So I can say to the video AI, I have paramedics here, and I want to create a 56-year-old with chest pain. These are all, I'm going to type all the particular demographics, and I want to accomplish this goal in training, create a video. And the AI will create a video that looks like television with the exact scenario that you described. So you don't need to go get the kid that's in the office that stayed home sick from school and be like, can you play like you're a kid that has a hurt elbow and come in here and we can do a scenario on you? You don't have to do that anymore. You can just ask the AI to create a training scenario. You can ask the AI to create training scripts. You can do the same exact thing. I want 10 training scripts that specifically address paramedics treating AFib that is uncontrolled in a pre-hospital setting. And 10 seconds later, you will have 10 scripts, right? So who creates that sort of stuff now? And how long does it take you to do it? Right? Your job is in jeopardy, sir.
Actually, it's funny because the city put out a policy that said we will not use AI until it's vetted and IT will approve any AI that, so our computers are locked down from accessing and we just have to do it.
I mean, that might be the right answer. But
Can the videos be interactive yet?
no, not that I've seen. I mean, with GPT-4, if that had worked, and we could maybe try it again after, but I can absolutely say, hey, I was in Paris a couple months ago, and there was a woman there, or we were in London, but she was a Parisian, she didn't speak English. And she was trying to figure out, she was coming to Denver and then she was going to LA and her plane was delayed and the Brits were like, we don't care about you. And I took GPT-4 out and I set it on the table in between us. And I said, hey, GPT-4, when you hear French, speak English. And when you hear English, speak French. And it was like, okay. And it seamlessly translated their conversation for 2.5 minutes until she figured out, till she had solved her problem.
But it's not to the point of making interactive videos yet, like, let's say, yes, we performed this treatment on the patient.
And it would change the outcome.
Right.
I haven't seen anything like that, but I mean, I think it probably can
Next
do
month.
that. Yeah, it's next month. When you're talking about training, I mean, I think that one of the really big purchase points for here is asking medical questions and creating training and training opportunities, training scenarios. Especially because that stuff, and we'll talk about a little bit of the ethics, but connecting the AI to the patient treatment is probably still a little scary. I wouldn't want the AI recommending a treatment, right, for me right now personally, or especially not actually actuating a treatment. But creating training where you have an expert human that can say, wow, this would have taken me 4 hours to do and it took me 4 minutes. And I'm going to read it for 10 minutes and I'm going to assure that everything is in line with what I think. I mean, wow, right? We uploaded our policy and procedure book into AI and I said, edit it for content and for grammar, and then remember it. And when I have new policies, build those policies in this form. And so now I can go in and say, build me a Colorado Open Records Act policy. And then 2.5 minutes later, or 2.5 seconds later, there's policy, and it's in our form, and it has the number that we want, and it's in a Word document, and I just download it and I put it in the policy.
So. The concern that I have.
We're not to concerns yet. No.
I mean, I use it. I asked ChatGPT, I mean, if you logged into my ChatGPT, this changed for me. So things that is this. Oh wait, just stuff that a 3-year-old should, right? Am I right? But I keep getting a lot of pressure from crews about why can't I use this version of it for the formatting or that? Thing that makes me anxious is like none of us have EAs with any of these software companies, and none of us are gonna get it.
Yeah.
Close to stuff. So how do we manage that?
Put a pin in that. We're gonna get to that. Let me go through some of this other new stuff and then go ahead, sir.
You know what would be interesting, if that we should try sometime, is what if you open up your GPT, you ran a fake call, see what it picks up, and then say, write a narrative based on it.
Yeah, it could do it. We just need the right interface.
So one of the nurse practitioners that we're working with now, she actually, there's a product out there that she can open up that watches the telehealth visit and actually writes her entire care report based on the interaction on telehealth, and it's very accurate.
I'm gonna walk right here. I'm still talking. This is a Claude AI. It's just a tiny metal thing. It uses the GPT engine. It sits on the back of my phone. You'd never know it was there. One button that records everything. And then I can ask it questions about the conversations. I can ask it to give me a summary. It can make minutes. I can ask it to give a bullets pointed list. I can say, were there any action items for me in this conversation? And the AI will create whatever document I want based on, so if I took this into a patient scenario, yes, the problem with that is it's not HIPAA compliant, and so I can't do that yet.
But who's to stop that from happening?
Yeah, this is it's an important conversation for your crews absolutely cannot use this when interacting with patients. If you want to ask it a question in the station about an EKG, you want to upload an EKG to it and say, what do you think about the interpretation of this? It probably can give you an interpretation, but I'm very concerned about using it in patient facing scenario right now. It's not ready. Are you using it with patients? I see your face. Okay, just making sure.
So there's been just recently, the last few years, significant amount of money spent on simulation, equipment, software, etc. It almost seems like
Yeah.
you just stick that in a $20 dummy and everything's good to go.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna change, like, a lot of the content that is created, that is, not unique. A lot of that sort of scenario-based content, or this is gonna do it for you, and it's gonna do it very soon.
What was that thing called?
Claude, Plaud AI. It's $130. It's got like a 2-week charge, and anytime I'm in any meeting and I'm just like, I don't want to pay attention anymore, I just push the button. And I'm done.
So it's been running this whole time.
Whole time. So the other things I want to give insight into the different stuff that we can do with this. So data analytics is really, so I can any of the stuff that Austin talked about, any of those things that you're tracking. So my favorite quote about data is that we use data like a drunk uses a light post, right? So we're always leaning on it, but we never use it to illuminate anything, right? So you can take those giant data sets, you can take your, whatever, your audio data set for how you use your vehicles, any of those sorts of things in a spreadsheet, and you can upload it to ChatGPT and you can say, give me insights. I'm curious about this, I'm curious about that. You don't need to interpret that data yourself anymore. You don't need an account you don't need to understand how Tableau works. That stuff is basically all out the window. Can you rely on it if you don't have expertise? No. But for a lot of the decisions we're making, you can take these data sets, upload them into AI, ask questions, and it will provide you its interpretation. During the hurricane, as I'm from New Orleans, I have a bunch of family that was down there. I was taking all the models, all the computer models they were giving us, coming out every 4 hours. And I was taking those, just the images of the models, uploading them in ChatGPT, and then asking it to give me its perspective on percentage of likelihood of landfall where my family was. And it was changing that percentage every 4 hours when those new models came out. And I was watching it and it was really accurate. I mean, as we got close, it was changing that percentage to be more and more in the places that actually named it. And I don't know anything about weather. I don't know anything about analytics. I just used the tool based on the 8 or 10 different models that were coming out. And then
That's one of them only has to be right 50% of the time.
right. So it's perfect. So data analytics is great. Documentation, I mean, this is the future for us. I mean, I envision in the next 5 years, you wear some sort of lapel mic camera thing, and it's recording everything. It is writing your patient care report. It's going to be so much better than humans because it knows exactly what it needs to capture to put things together to actually obtain that proper billing. Dragon, if you have ever seen docs using Dragon, that already has AI componentry in it. So, we're already seeing some of that stuff, but hopefully, this is an area where we can make some big leaps forward. Mental health is a weird one, but I just interacted with somebody a couple of days ago that had a mental health AI on their phone. And they said, yeah, when I get really stressed out, I just talk to this thing and it tells me about how great I am and it gives me tools and it helps me calm down, tells me to breathe. And it's 100% a generative AI engine. And I don't remember what it's called, but I'm sure you can Google it and find, ask AI, don't even Google. Google is gone, don't even worry about it. Ask the AI what it is and it will tell you what it is. So there's an opportunity here, especially as care resources are difficult to access. Dr. Google or a WebMD feels like the Stone Age now, because I can go on ChatGPT and I can say, I have this ailment, and it will actually give me a pretty decent diagnosis if I know how to navigate it. And then, I mean, this is where I use it every day, is communications. I very rarely put a communication out now that doesn't go through it first. And most of what I'm doing is writing something myself and then putting it in AI and saying, just edit it for grammar and spelling and make sure that it's got the right punctuation and stuff like that. Occasionally I say, can you improve it? And then I read it and I say, yeah, I like that, I don't, it's not my voice, it is. you can upload something and say, edit this in my voice. And it will edit the document using your language. It won't change it. If you saw anything from ChatGPT 3, you put something in there and it would come out like Chaucer, and you're like, no, I don't talk like that. Nobody talks like that. That doesn't work. But now it understands how to do this. And so you can really use it in a communication sense. You can also use it for prompting. So you can say, I really want to write an email to my staff about the holidays. Can you help me think about the things that would be great for me to include? And it will give you the bullet pointed items. These are the things that you should include. Remember that you've got this, and this is you want to hit, right? And then you can use that prompt, write what you want to write, put it back in, make sure that it's grammatically correct. And then you have this incredible communication. The gold mine here, the absolute gold mine is when anybody asks you for a letter of recommendation, you can just have ChatGPT write it. You never have to write another letter of recommendation, right? You never have to write another letter of recommendation ever again. You can upload their resume into ChatGPT and say, I have this relationship with them. Please write me a letter of recommendation to these people. And it'll save it as a Word document. You're done. That's my gift to you. And I said that this was financial, so let's talk financial, because this is really where the rubber meets the road for this conference. It can do all the things that you may want a CFO or a controller to do, and she just walked out of the room, but we even had this conversation before. It is incredible at helping you interpret your financial documents. So you can upload an Excel spreadsheet of your budget, and you can ask it questions about how your budget, is going to be, whether it's efficient, how you're allocating money. You can ask it, you can build constraints, and you can sort of have all kinds of cost and budgeting and forecasting conversations with it based on that information. So remember that it's learning and it's interpreting anything that you put into it. And so if you have that burning, what is my tax revenue over 10-year question related to the amount of money we're spending, and you upload the taxation documents for 5 years and you upload your budgets for 5 years, you can ask it those questions as if you gave them to a contractor and they read those things and then they were able to provide you with information. It is that good at doing that. When you get to logic questions, it is incredibly good at logical interpretation and answering. So all these sorts of things, your compliance, your cost control, any sort of financial reporting. So it'll prepare financial documents. Here's my financials, and I need I need a set financial documents for my board of directors. This is what I would like to look like. It can create those things in Excel. It's not just printing this out on a piece of paper. It will create an Excel document for you that you can then download and check. Checking is the important thing, but it will do all of these things. It is 100% a wonderful financial tool. When I was in this conference last year, does anyone remember what I taught? Capital. That's so great. What a great group. I'm kidding. I taught capital planning, and last year, if you went to Google and you typed in capital planning process, this is what you got, right? So you would get a couple of ads. Deloitte. I don't care about Deloitte at all. Whatever this is, a beginner's guide to understanding. Maybe I could click that and figure that out. And then I get these like, well, I don't quite understand your question. Can you give me some more answers? And then like 10 more pages of Google stuff that's just other web pages that I can go and dig through and mine and all that, right? And this is really, when I talk capital planning, this is pretty much what we had access to. And so that was a good topic. It's not anymore, it's not a good topic, because when I ask ChatGPT, this is what it does. Briefly outline the capital planning process for me in a public EMS service. And it gives me the 8 steps that I taught last year. This is, I did not, this is what ChatGPT knows. It doesn't have anything to do with me. This is, pretty much the curriculum that I taught last year. And it's now all accessible to anybody. You don't have to, I went to grad school, I paid too much money to learn this. Now it's just completely accessible.
Give me back that chip.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, that's what the important thing about thinking about how this stuff can be implemented is this difference, right? This is pre-AI and this is post-AI. And if I typed in below this, that's great. Write me a 10-page document that gives me a step-by-step on how to assess my organization's capital plan and how to create the new capital plan. It would create a 10-page document. In fact, right back on their desk there, AI suggested, when I was thinking about teaching this class, AI suggested that I printed out you guys that would help you remember all the things we talked about. This is 100% created by ChatGPT. If you're interested in it, it's a summary of what we talked about today, so that you can take that home and think about it. But if I said I want a 100-page document on capital planning, it would do that. If I said I want you to give me 100 words on each of the top 8, it could do that. Anything that I direct it to do, it will do, and it has this incredible understanding of the human, of the history of how this stuff works. It's spooky, but it's incredibly valuable. I mean, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing this every day now, and you're not doing this every day after we had this conversation, you will be using this every day in the next 2 months. If you have an iPhone, it's gonna have ChatGPT on it before the end of the year. They've already signed the contract. The iOS 18 is formulated for the use in AI. And within the next 2 years, anything you interact with is gonna have some AI component. So let's do it. Let's do a little bit of a test. Which time do I have left? I'm good. I'm good. Let's do a test. Which one of these photographs is real? Do you think the guy and the dog, the people at the Golden Gate Bridge, or the people at the what looks like a concert? What do you think? Which one's real?
I would say none of them.
There's one that's real. The one on the left is real?
Yeah.
How many people think the one on the left is real? Okay, how many people think the guy and the dog is real? Okay, how many people think the concert's real? Concert's real. The other two are AI. These people, and these people don't exist. They don't exist. This is AI's perspective on what people might look like. Same here. They don't actually exist. So we are in a post-truth world. I hate to break it to you, but deciphering what's real and what's not is going to become very, very difficult.
Just, if I might, what does this do to law enforcement?
I don't
legal
know.
system?
Oh man, I know. Well, I mean, when you think about evidentiary stuff,
There's my alibi. I mean, I'm in San Francisco right there.
Yeah.
Let's look at it.
Could I not enter those 3 pictures into
you can.
and ask which one's real?
Doesn't work anymore. Can't, like all that in the very beginnings, people were like, well, you can upload it and ask if it knows whether it's, no, that works. It encodes it, no.
Will this app work on Android?
I don't recognize Android as a phone, so I'm not, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. I think that, I don't know, so, I mean, the thing about that is Google also has Gemini. I don't think they'll prevent it. I know it scares me. Is it so? ChatGPT does have, yeah, there you go, answered.
So to answer Kim's question a little bit, our deputies have the new accent. They're writing their reports based on what their body cam
Yeah.
reports. Their body camera is writing their reports for them.
Yep. This is the future.
So just curious, as you use ChatGPT, are you open sourcing or closed sourcing?
As far as,
I just heard that the other day. I didn't even know that was an option.
oh, I'm close. Yeah, no, I'm close. Yeah, I didn't know the distinction. Yeah, I'm close source. So I pay. I literally 4 came out, I use it 1 time, and then it cuts you off. So if you're on the free one, you can use it once or twice or for 10 minutes or something. And I literally couldn't get my credit card out fast enough. It's so good. So good. It's $20 a month.
Yeah, so I just went to ChatGPT, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
I
let's-
went to ChatGPT and I said, I just barely logged into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Make a picture of me in San Francisco.
There you go.
And I said, describe yourself a bit. And I just said, 55-year-old Caucasian male. And there I am.
Congratulations on your trip to San Francisco. So before we got to get to this part, because this is the most important part. What's the downside of this? We've sort of woven this stuff through as we've been talking about. Again, I asked ChatGPT, give me an image of the downside of using ChatGPT. And this is the creepy thing that it made. But you can see here some of the evidence of it being AI, right? So it's not actually, it sort of has some of the words were real, some of the words aren't. But there's some real challenges here, and there's some stuff that we really ought to think about. But the one that I want you to know most importantly is that it potentially has really nefarious bias. Okay, so if you think about showing a mirror on American society or showing a mirror on the world society, and was pointed out in the beginning, think about the bias that's associated. And so we talked about before how this is sort of this network of words that are close and far from each other based on their relationships, right? And that's kind of how it works in predicting the next word. And so ChatGPT 2, which in theory this problem's been solved, but in ChatGPT 2 they did some research. They wanted to understand its level of bias, and so they asked ChatGPT to predict the next word when the first word was doctor, and then its relationships to the word man were removed. So imagine in a mathematical way, doctor minus man equals what, right? What do you think it said? It said nurse. Right? So it had a gender bias to doctor versus nurse that was reflective in our society until the last 10 or 15 years, right? So when it is thinking about what that next most likely word is, it is biasing itself based on gender just because of the materials that it was trained on. And so if you don't think about that sort of stuff and you're having it create all of these things and you're not thinking through the lens of bias, which they're working diligently to fix, but I mean, there's only so far that one can go. It does reflect some of the biases of our society. And so if you're going to use this to build policies and trainings, and you have to look at it through that lens. You have to be concerned about, is this thing creating something that is potentially infecting my organization with bias? Because it's nefarious. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily, if you had it create some sort of scenario, and in its own processing, it did Dr. Minus Man and it created a nurse, you would never know that, right? But that's the way it's thinking about processing information. So that's a really, really important part. The other part that we all know about is privacy and security, and it's what was eloquently pointed out by the gentleman from Grand County, which is, this is not HIPAA compliant. This is not in any way, shape, or form ready for prime time from the perspective of sharing any sensitive information. We don't know where this information is going. We don't have any relationships with the people that are helping create this stuff. I wouldn't give it into my social security number. I wouldn't give it any protected health information. I wouldn't give it human resources information. I wouldn't give it anything that potentially could be violating the law from an information sharing standpoint. And then probably the other really important thing is that it hallucinates, which is the word that is used to describe when it gets things wrong. My experience has been 4 is much better than 3, like significantly so. But when I first started using this, I was looking for article. I was looking for a study. I remember the outcome. It was an EMS related. I don't remember what it is now. And I was like, man, if I could only find that paper, and I was looking through, a library, and I couldn't figure out where it was. And I said, oh, I'll ask ChatGPT. And so I said, hey, this is the paper. This was the outcome. This is what it was about. Here's the details. What do can you find me the paper? And it just popped up this APA, APA citation. And I was like, fantastic. Like this is the win. And I took it and I sent it to the librarian at the University of Denver. And I said, because I can get them to pull PDFs. I said, pull this PDF and send it to me. And she called me like 45 minutes later and she was like, I've never come across this. I don't know what this is. And I was like, what do you mean? Like this is an APA. And she's like, this doesn't exist. And I was like, no, it has to. I mean, it's an APA citation. And Polly said, ask him if he used ChatGPT. And I said, oh yeah, I did. And she said, so I did a little research. It took 6 different articles, amalgamated them into one. So 6 articles that had different aspects of what I was looking for, amalgamated them into one. And that APA citation had authors from different articles, parts of the different titles and all that sort of stuff. It made sense. Didn't exist. So you have to be really conscientious about hallucination. So that's why you can't connect this directly to any particular output of care, because I'm not relying on this thing at all to actually be something that doesn't have that fail-safe of human oversight, right? And then the last part that's challenging is environmental impact. So if you have ChatGPT edit a 100-word email, it costs half a liter of water and 7 iPhone batteries to do that. The computing power that is captured in this is tremendous. And so hopefully that will be mitigated through things like solar power and recycling the water and that sort of stuff. But today, using this sort of computing power, not unlike mining for crypto, is really, really energy intense. And so societally, we're going to have to figure out how to reconcile using that sort of energy. The last part we've got a couple minutes. The last part that I'll sort of kick off just from as a thought experiment is the ethics of this. And, we really have to think about how this plays into us providing care to people and whether this is okay. And certainly the only Colorado law that really exists right now is consent. So if I turn this thing on, I am to ask all of your permission. It's not on, so don't worry about it. But if I sit in a meeting, I'm supposed to say, I'm going to turn an AI recording device on. Is that okay with everyone? Which I probably should do, but I find myself not doing it too often. So we have to get consent, if we're going to use these devices, and that goes through, if we're using these to gather patient information for reporting, if we're using for training, all this sort of stuff, we have to make sure the groups we're working with consent to having their, the details of their interactions absorbed into this system. And then the other part that's probably interesting is this may lead to some depersonalization of healthcare, right? So today, healthcare largely, the value provision of healthcare exists between two people. And, you know, even if everything we do right now, the telemedicine stuff, still two people just connected with technology. You know, all these telephone, nurse line, it's all two people that are connected through technology. This potentially is saying we're going to remove one of those people and you're going to be connected to technology to provide you care. I don't know whether that's something that is favorable. Are we willing to trade that in for the cost and efficiency savings, or maybe the increased quality of care that potentially is going to be provided? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves. An interesting study that was done, there was a fascinating article in the American Journal of Medicine. They did a double-blind study where they had patients interact with a physician and patients interact with an AI. Guess which one got better patient satisfaction scores? Significantly better patient satisfaction scores. The AI. And the article is from a physician, and he's not saying, looking here, the AI is great. He's saying, how bad are we that a machine is better at interacting with people than we are?
Think about though. If we're having a physician shortage,
Yeah, exactly.
is there a need?
Right.
And will we ultimately reduce the need for physicians, let alone the
Right.
paramedics?
That's, I mean, that's 100%. That is the societal question is it, it's trading in the richness of that potential interaction worth it to be efficient, to have better connections to care, to have higher quality of care. You know, it's something that we have along this path, we have said, the doctor used to come to my house and now I go to the doctor. Well, no, now I see the doctor on the phone, and now I talk to the doctor on Zoom. You know, now I actually don't talk to a doctor. I talk to somebody that the doctor trained that's sort of like a doctor, but not really a doctor. And if they have a problem, they go to the doctor, right? So we've been okay with all that stuff. Are we okay with just eliminating it altogether and saying you're going to talk to a machine?
If they tried applying this to like system status management, if
So-
so, has it been effective?
There was some so Denver Health bought a system that was similar to this, like about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was like a multi-million-dollar system that used some predictive analytics and AI to help understand how to distribute ambulances based on response time, historic response times. So they would say, you know, like they uploaded 5 years of information and then it would say, you know, like on a Tuesday in November, like this area is the best place and that area is the one that has the most call volume. So yes, there's probably, especially for urban systems,
Is it effective?
I mean, I never understood why it was making the suggestions it was making, but yeah, probably.
AMR, GMR has a system, an AI-based form built into their CAD system nationwide that takes all the calls and uses AI predictive technology to identify potential pandemics. And it worked. No one recognized it.
Yeah.
During COVID. If they had actually recognized the trend that AI had actually identified.
Yeah.
They would have known that COVID was here like 3 months before anyone actually knew it was here.
That was that biospatial stuff too, right? Connected with AI, yeah. Glad to answer any questions. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just fascinated by it. So if I don't know the answers, I'm glad to find them for you.
It's ask ChatGPT.
Or ask, yeah, I mean, completely honestly, yeah.
It's not all created equal, right? So we just upgraded to some new fulfillment systems that I'm sure IT chose because it was miles cheaper. And
Yeah.
It's got AI, it's got meeting transcription and everything else, and it is absolute top grade. They can't summarize anything. And there are other programs that,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, this is the other thing we're gonna see now is that just like everything's fat-free or sugar-free, everything's gonna get stamped with AI, you know, you get the latest and greatest thing with AI on it, and it's not about the same. You know, right now, OpenAI is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. Google's catching up. Microsoft. Apparently, the Microsoft tool is really good. I'm not used to it. Go ahead.
Another question, just going back to using it for documentation. Whose organization has a specific policy right now on not using AI to write documentation?
Yeah, we have a
You guys do?
policy that says if you use AI in any way, you have to be like on the, if I gave this presentation at work, I'd have to have a slide that said created in part with AI or something like that. You know, I have to disclose it. And we're not allowed to use it with any patient, based on our human resources space.
And so then my next question, my follow-up question is, again, for the group, if I might.
Yeah.
If you don't have a policy, who is 100% sure that their employees aren't using this right now for documentation?
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now.
Okay.
Please wait a bit and try.
I mean, I used to carry around a thumb drive with like 10 common narratives on it. And I would just plug it into my computer and I would just drag the copy paste over when I was writing. I mean, I did that all the time. I don't know why. I don't know how they're not doing this. I'm sure that they probably are. All you gotta do is say, hey, I ran this call, give it some details, write a narrative. So I don't know how to stop that, but certainly, I mean, stuff like what he discussed with just blocking access. We don't have access through our computer systems to ChatGPT.
Did ChatGPT write your policy?
Yes.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. So before I close, any other questions? Glad, yeah, that's her.
So just everything you said from your recommendation from this point on, we should all just pack a towel.
Yes, yeah, 42, 100%. I'm very glad,
Yes.
I'm very glad that we can have this shared moment about that, because that is important.